The only thing we need to be sure of is we have somebody from HR who has joined us, because we have some questions that may be relevant to us. Is there anyone from HR?
Because we invited Anne.
Yeah, we invited Anne, but last time she sent somebody else.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we could maybe send an email to Anne. Okay. While we start. So good afternoon, everyone. We are very honored on this day, which is also a mental health day, to have this discussion. And we are so honored to have Kumiko with us, who comes from the ICSC, and they're the people who can really break down for us what goes on in the development of our compensation. So Kumiko has spent 2 years in Beirut working at the UNESCWA, 3 years in Geneva at UNCTAD. She then moved to New York in 2003, and she joined the Cost of Living Division of the International Civil Service Commission, which is the ICSC Secretariat. And she's been working then from the cost of living, she moved to the salaries and allowances division of the ICSC, and she is the deputy chief of the division. She's worked in the private sector of the United States before she joined the UN. As a researcher and consultant, and her educational background is in economics, as well as on-the-job professional training in the business world. And she works on allowances. So Kumiko, without further ado, I'm going to ask you to begin the conversation. Thank you so much for being here. We're just checking if we have somebody from HR who will join, so that we make sure that any questions we have can then be answered on how FAO applies what they're meant to apply through the common system. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Azi. I hope you can hear me. Hello, everyone. And let me just jump into it by sharing the PowerPoint presentation. So please let me know. I'm going to share the screen, and hopefully you see the first education grant. So even though can you see the PowerPoint? I hope.
No.
No? Oh, that's weird. I am sharing the screen now.
Before we could see it, I think you were doing some tests, and I could see you were sharing something.
Yeah, so I'm doing the same thing now. I was checking. So you don't see it, huh? It's very strange. Let me see.
Try and make you a co-host.
Okay, let me see. How about
now? It's working.
Good. All right. So let me start with education grant, and then we will go into repatriation grant.
Sorry, but we're seeing the Zoom.
You need to share your screen. You need to choose your screen. You're just showing the Zoom. Yeah, thanks.
Is it showing now?
No, you need to go into your desktop and find where the presentation is, and then share that.
Okay. I am choosing it, but I don't know why. Okay, how about this one? If this is not the, let me see. Let's try this way.
Yeah.
And I wanted to show you. Do you see
the education grant, the overview of the scheme?
Okay, but you see the site also, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to use the presentation mode, but I guess it does. How about that? Does it work?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a presentation mode, right? because later I want to have the animation. Anyway, sorry about this technical issues. Let's start with education grant. So I'm gonna go over the scheme by covering eligibility and what it covers and how we calculate the grant amount. And also we have education grant travel, which is available only for some staff members. And I want to cover how we update the amount because this is the reimbursement benefit, right? So we have certain limit on the amount staff members can get reimbursed, and that limit will be updated every 2 years, or maybe not. We'll see. I'll mention that. And after I cover the regular education grant, I will touch upon the special education grant and share with you what's coming up next. So first of all, eligibility. From the staff perspective, the grant education grant is available for staff members who have the international, who are recruited internationally and residing and serving outside of the recognized home country. And also, the staff member should hold a fixed term, continuing a permanent appointment. So if it's the staff member is on a short term, the eligibility doesn't meet. And from the child side, the current education grant covers the children from 5 years and on and older at the beginning of each academic year, or in case the child is not 5 yet at the beginning of the school year, as long as he or she reaches the age of 5 within 3 months, the eligibility is met. And the scheme covers up to the end of the school year when the child completes 4 years of post-secondary studies or attains the first post-secondary degree, whichever comes first. And in case there was some interruption in the education, whatever the reason, health reason, or some mandatory military obligations of the home country, it could be moved up to age 25. And obviously 25 is not 4 years after post-secondary degree studies for many cases, but that could be moved up. And in terms of the coverage, the staff children must be in full-time attendance at the school, either university or similar educational institutions. And the condition is that it's facilitating child reassimilation in the staff members' recognized home country. And also, in case the staff member and his or her child reside outside of their home country where their native language is not the language of education, the child could enroll in the mother tongue language education, and the scheme covers the tuition as well. And in terms of what is considered to be reimbursable, as I mentioned that this benefit is reimbursement, right? So the staff member submits the claim to the organization, which should include tuition and the tuition in mother tongue education in case it applies, and other enrollment-related fees. And some of you might be familiar with the previous scheme which was in effect until school year or before school year in effect in January 2018. So the new scheme came from that school year in effect as of January 2018. So prior to that, we staff members could claim other expenses, including capital assessment, books and meals and the transportation and so on. Now the current scheme is streamlined and only allows tuition and enrollment related fees as reimbursable, admissible expenses. And when the new scheme was introduced, it was determined the capital assessment fees would be dealt outside of the education grant scheme. We were aware that capital assessment fees could be quite large in some schools. So the commission decided that, and it was approved by the GA, the capital assessment fees could be dealt and outside, and some organizations, I believe, reimburses 100% of the capital assessment fees. I don't know in case of FAO, but it's up to the organizations. And the boarding assistance, boarding fees used to be part of admissible fee expenses as well, but it's no longer the case. In this current scheme, boarding assistance is available only when the staff is entitled to receive or the staff member meets certain conditions, and I will come back to it. Okay, so in terms of how we calculate how much to be reimbursed when staff submits the claim, so we aggregate the tuition fees and other enrollment-related fees, and the total amount will be converted to US dollars. So the current scheme is a global focus. Again, in the previous scheme was very different. In case you are familiar with the previous scheme, it used to be very different, and it had different divisions, and the reimbursement currencies used to be, I think, there were about 14, 15 different regions. But now, in the current scheme, every claim, the amount will be first converted to US dollars. And then we look at the total amount in USD and use this scale. It's a sliding scale. So if the claim is under 13,224, you will get 86% of the total reimbursed. And beyond that limit, first bracket, right? So if your claim is beyond that, next amount beyond that threshold is going to be reimbursed 81%. So it's, I'm sorry, are we okay? I'm going to continue. If you want me to stop, please tell me.
No, I think somebody unmuted, so
okay.
it's been muted. Don't worry. Go
Okay.
ahead.
All right. So so it's like, I don't know if you're familiar with the tax rate, taxation, the table. So it's gradually reduced. If you say, let's say if you have the claim of $40,000, right? So if you look at the second from the bottom bracket, so you think you might fall in that category and you get 61% reimbursed, and that's not the case. The first 13,224 is reimbursed 86%, and next up to 19,836 reimbursed 81%. So it's not like you will be receiving 61% of 40,000. And I'll show you more details in the next slide. But anyway, that's how the tuition and enrollment related fees are calculated for reimbursement. And then for the boarding side, it's no longer calculated in the total. So if you qualify for the boarding assistance, no matter how much it's costing to have your son or daughter study away from your duty station, you will be reimbursed a fixed amount. Again, this is a global approach. So no matter where you happen to be serving or where your child is studying, it does not affect the amount. $5,300 a year will be the fixed amount, lump sum amount for boarding assistance. Now, let's go into details how this calculation is done. Let's say first we have this calculation done. These numbers are calculated at the upper bracket limit of each bracket. So if your claim amount happens to be exactly 13,224, you will receive 11,373. If your claim amount happens to be exactly 19,836, the calculation is on the box on your right. So the first amount, you will already get 11,373. And then the remaining beyond that, next amount, 19,836, we divide that, and this portion will be reimbursed 81%. And we add together. So the total reimbursement is 16,728. So this amount is obviously more than 81% of total amount, and so on. So if we go into the different amount, let's say the total is 10,000, then you will, because this amount falls in the first bracket, you will get 86% of the total. If the total fee you are claiming happens to be 20,000, so it falls in this bracket. So you will get this amount, which is already in the case your claim is 19,836, right? So plus the difference between 20,000 and this amount will be reimbursed 76%, and the total will be 16,728. If it's 30,000, this bracket, so we use 21,753 at the top of the third bracket, plus 66% of the difference. And the example I was talking about, 40,000. So it's not, if it's 61%, it's about 24,000, right? But it's not the case. First, we use this amount, 30,812, and add to that 61% of the difference between 40,000 and the top of the previous bracket. So I hope that is clear to you. Now let's go into education grant travel. So education grant travel is only available if staff members are receiving boarding assistance, which is available in case staff members are serving in the duty stations categorized A through E. So if staff members are serving in headquarters or H duty station, it's not available. And also, if your child is in the post-secondary education, it's not available, even if you serve in any duty station from A through E. So it's very limited. Again, I repeat the conditions. It's applicable if staff members are serving duty stations A through E and the child is studying away from the staff duty stations to enroll in primary and secondary education, educational institutions. And if that's the case, you get the education grant travel once a year, the round trip in each academic year. And I might add, exceptional cases could be made even if staff members are serving at headquarters or H duty stations. The executive heads might grant the boarding assistance. And if that's the case, of course, education grant travel will be available to you. And usually I understand this is again going to the administrative part of the scheme. So maybe the HR people from FAO can clarify better than I could. But the amount of the travel should be usually within the cost of the journey between home country and the duty stations, no matter where the child is studying. But that's more administrative side. So maybe if you have questions, you could ask your admin office. Now I mentioned so the table I showed you. This table is updated, and the rule is we are tracking tuition fee movements. And every 2 years, we calculate how much the tuition fees have increased. Usually it doesn't decrease. I take it back. When we calculate in US dollars, because of the exchange rate fluctuations, could go down, but it's not likely. Education fees are going up really quickly everywhere. So anyway, we track the tuition fees of selected schools. We call them representative schools, and we calculate the average fee movements, and we submit the calculation results to commission, and commission reviews whether it's justifiable to change the brackets. And the same thing for lump sum. For lump sum, recently the set of, what I should say, method of selecting represented schools has been changed. But anyway, the idea is to have pre-selected representative schools. Currently, 13 schools for lump sum side, and for sliding scale side, we have 29 schools. They are different. So commission has selected or updated the representative schools, 29 and 13, and we track the boarding fee movements for the lump sum side. And again, we calculate the fee movements, and we submit our recommendation to the commission, and the commission will decide every 2 years, and the commission will make the their recommendations whether to upgrade the scale or the lump sum amount, and propose the changes to GA. Now, as I mentioned, the current scheme came into effect from the school year in progress as of January 2018. And then it was 2 years ago, the two sets of representative scores were reviewed by commission, and we adjusted. And so now we have 29 representative schools for the tuition side and 13 for the boarding assistance. And not based on that, separately, based on the previous representative scores, we had calculated, actually prior to 92nd session, we had calculated the fee movements and proposed the scale to be adjusted by a certain amount and the boarding lump sum to be increased. So just to show you, this was the previous brackets. So the first bracket went only up to 11,600 as compared to 13,224. So I will share this slide so you can see the numbers. I mean, side to side, it'll be easier. But anyway, so it was adjusted by about 14%. And the lump sum used to be 5,000, and now it's 5,300. So this summarizes the regular education grant. So let me touch upon special education grant next.
Kumiko, before you do that,
Yeah.
There's a question here.
Okay.
Is there any boarding assistance for post-secondary university level?
No. It's a short answer, no, because
Yes.
it doesn't matter where the staff member is serving or the staff member is granted the exception, even if the staff member is at the H or headquarters duty station. It covers only for the case when the the child is studying at the primary or secondary level.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There were Georgie, I think you've answered some questions in the chat, but could you answer them? She's our HR person from FAO.
Okay.
So I'm just going to ask her to explain the answers that she's been giving in the chat so that people understand what's been going on. Please go ahead.
Yeah, but I saw that we can do at the end, but still, if it's required now, I can provide the explanation now.
Yes, please. I think let's finish with education grant and then we'll go on to special education grant so that people know we're talking about this right now.
Okay, so as what we get that whether we have something that the uniform is reimbursed, but uniform is not reimbursed. The uniform here, it means that equal for everyone all over the world. I'm talking about the lump sum, boarding assistant lump sum. But the lump sum for boarding assistance is just for duty station, which are not each duty station in the case of FAO. And then if there is the education travel is applicable. And there is a strong linkage between the two. And therefore, it is paid only up to the secondary level. For university level, there is nothing paid for boarding or travel cost. That's pretty sure. So, however, there can be some exception, how it's said. For example, someone is transferred from a duty station to another, then for after the transfer date, we have still 1 year when it can be applied the previous education grant scheme that the staff member remained at the old duty station, because it's assisting them that the child doesn't have an interruption or a break in the study. So that's just support the child. That's why we are paying those issues. And then I received that when education grant is payable, so if anyone is requesting an advance, there is a time frame which starts 3 months before the school year, and up to 6 months after the commencement of the school year. And the claim has to be submitted if there was an advance, then the claim has to be submitted within 90 days after the last day of the school year. Otherwise, it's recovered. If there was no advance, the staff member has 2 years to submit any claim to the organization to be reimbursed.
Because we wanted
So that's the general rule.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Okay, Kumiko, we can go on with the
Okay.
special education grant. Please, can you mute your mics, everyone? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was a great explanation about how it's handled. Okay, let's go into special education grant. And as you know, this is available for a child with a disability. And even though I mentioned the eligibility of the regular education grant, 5 to certain age, could be up to 25, but usually 4 years after the secondary degree education. But that is waived or extended depending on the, I guess, organization's admin policy. And this is available for all staff members and all categories, as long as they hold fixed term, continuing, and permanent appointment. So what I'm saying is that it's available not only for internationally recruited, but even locally recruited staff members or the general service staff members. It is available as long as you hold these appointments, contracts. And it's quite different from the regular scheme. The admissible expenses includes quite a bit. And I'm not going to go into details, but just as in the previous scheme, it includes not only tuition, mother tongue tuition, or enrollment-related fees. You could submit all other facilities required for the education, meals, books, transportation, and even the boarding. We lump sum together. We calculate all the expenses together to come up with the total admissible expenses. And then you submit the claim and 100% will be reimbursed up to the limit. It's not it's not the whole amount no matter how much, but it's up to 46,284, which happens to be the upper bracket, the most highest limit for the regular education grant. And in case you are lumping the boarding fee as well, then the limit will be increased by 5,300. So in case your total claim amount includes the boarding fee, then you will be reimbursed up to 51,584. Okay, 100% up to that amount. So that's quite different from regular education grant. So this is the end of education grant schemes. And before I go to repatriation grant, should I stop here?
Yes, please. We have a hand up from Alan Doe, and we also have a question in the chat from Tui Lieb. He says, are there any changes in the education grant? Can students in the 5th year of university, can they have compensation or education grant? So those are the two questions. That's the question from Tui Lieb. I think that one, Georgie, please answer that one. About the 5th year of the of the university.
So the 5th year of the university, unfortunately not, as in line with the rules, we are reimbursing up to the maximum 4th year of the post-secondary studies or until the first degree is obtained. So if you tried studies starting with a bachelor degree, then obtains a master and will receive a bachelor degree in between, then the education grant stops with the first degree. If there are some university where the bachelor and master undivided degree, and we'll get only a final degree at the end of the 5th or the 6 years, or for medical university, mainly this type of education, then we are reimbursing up to the 4th year of the studies, not beyond that date, unfortunately. And we know that there are students with these limitations, but only up to the 4th year of the post-secondary study. I hope that it's answered the question.
Thank you. Thank you. Alan, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been a sort of a most informative session, and I know that there's only been less than 3 or 4 dozen people here, but I think it's I'd just like to say thank you so much for taking your time out to come and talk to us about this. So, okay, so 2 questions. One is, I think they both are related to the ICSC, and the first is that in the case of one of our kids, who's now an adult, well, she's 19. She's always been considered a disability, and has always been considered that psychological disability. Upon her graduation from high school, where the organization FAO paid for the shadow teacher, et cetera, but we paid for the 75%, or they paid the 75% of the regular high school. But upon graduation, they said they wouldn't pay for anything unless it was unless the child or the person was in 100%, like a program. In our case, that wasn't really possible in the duty station where we are. And so we kind of said, well, why not? And they said, well, that's just the way it is. So I'm just asking for ICSC's view on that. And I realize the organization may trump that. The second question is, upon retirement, how do we transfer that disability increment from our own organization? And maybe this comes back to Ms. Kiss or somebody else, but how do we transfer that our own FAO organization's view on disability in that kind of case into the pension system? Or are these 2 completely different things? So sorry to take up so much time. I hope that made sense. If not, let me know. Thank you.
Could I give something as a response?
Yes, please.
So as regards the child, if there is a disability, then there is always a way to get the reimbursement up until the age of 28, or if you remains with the organization longer, and not retiring before the age of the child is 28. So we are reimbursing all of these expenses, and it's part of the special education grant, but it also requires all the time a medical clarification or medical clearance, because in HR we are not medical person, and I can't tell whether there's this delay in the studies or the special needs is really relates to the disability, because there are so many disability scenarios.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I apologize for interrupting you, Georgie. No, in our case, she'd already completed high school, and so they said so. What we heard from from our medical, just for our ICSC, who doesn't understand all of these different terms, from our medical unit, basically was, if she's not in full-time some kind of program, full-time, 40 hours a week, they won't pay for anything. And so that meant that we're in a third country. We can only try to get part-time things, and they said, well, we won't pay for anything.
But I wouldn't say that it's correct, because if the full-time study is not possible due to the disability, then we are reimbursing, because you can't force your child to be in a full-time attendance of a school if it's not capable to do so. And I know
this is what our own FAO medical people have told us.
But we have a lot of new people in medical, and I had several discussions with them. And recently we had a case where it was the same scenario, and we went back to them explaining that as for our understanding, if it's proven that the child is not able to attend the school full-time due to the disability, then it should be considered and reimbursed.
Yeah.
We can outside of this. I can.
Sure. Okay.
I can.
It's not a question of not able. It's a question of there isn't anything suitable, sorry.
Yeah, as I said, it depends on the situation. So, but out of this meeting, we can discuss, because there are solutions for the special education grant to be paid or to be reimbursed.
Thanks.
And even we can have a common discussion with medical. I don't know which of the doctors told, but we can have a common discussion, and then we are on the same page at least.
Sure, and I don't want to take the floor again. So the second question was just for ICSC. I don't know if you can answer this, but how does it then go from the organization to the UN Joint Pension System? I don't know how to do that.
I'm not sure if it's applicable to education grant scheme. The question you are talking about, the transfer after retirement, right? How, and I guess your question is about the pension, isn't it? Not the education.
Yeah, no,
Right.
it's about the increment for someone with a disability, which can be then carried over into the UN Joint Pension System. But if you don't know, that's okay. I understand.
Right. I'm sorry. I wasn't prepared to go into pension. So it obviously, once you retire, it's not dealt within the education grant scheme. And I don't know the increment in terms, because of the child's disability. There may be some the amount applicable to the situation, but yeah, I'd rather not to go into that right now.
Yeah,
If it's
fully
okay.
understood.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and sorry to take the floor for so long.
No problem.
No, Alan, please do not apologize. This is why we're having these sessions, so that you get clarity. So please do not apologize. The more questions you ask, the better it is for us.
Correct.
That's the
Yes.
way,
Yes.
There is another question here. Are there any provisions to support people in charge of persons with physical disability, as a person under our charge? So Tualib, if you can raise your hand and explain the situation, so that I hope I'm reading this question right. Are you able to ask the question? Okay, thank you. And please tell me how to say your name. You need to unmute.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Sharif Tuel in SNE, in Tunisia, sub-regional office.
Welcome.
Actually, my question is dealing with the fact that I have a brother who is in physical disability for a long time, and under my charge. And I have been discussing for a short time with an office in headquarters last year, because I just come from headquarters to Tunis. And I didn't get back any clear position, any clear response, satisfactory response regarding this situation. Thanks very much. Is it clear that now? Is it clear now?
What's the question, Tualib? You're saying, would you have any compensation?
Yeah, yes. There is a provision, a special provision regarding insurance, our compensation, our something that is in regulation, our regulation is planned.
Georgie, I don't know if you understood that.
But I would ask Nurani Arshia, could you mute yourself, please? Thanks. So what I can tell, that if you have a disabled person you are charged of, and it's considered as your dependent, then you are getting a double of the dependency allowance payment. You are receiving a double amount. That's what the organization provides you. Otherwise, I know it's not too much, but and based on the medical reports and all of these things, then we are proceeding with a double payment of the dependency allowance.
I mean, how to get it, how to have it as a dependent person, We have to make a certificate, how to write something, because this is not my son, he's not my wife.
If that person is not living with you and not considered as your dependent, then we can't help. If there has to be, again, it's an offline question. So there are documents what you have to submit. Number one, that some official document which provides a clear statement that it is you who is responsible for that person, and that person is living with you. Or if that's the scenario, or has to be in an institute because not able to live with a circumstance. Anyhow, so then if there are these proven documents, and then based on the medical decision, is considered as your disabled dependent, then you are receiving a double payment of the dependency allowance.
Could you please send me more details, because this situation I am
Yes,
taking
I
care
will
of this
send.
for more than 12 years already.
And why don't you say to us earlier? Okay, so
because
I will. I will.
I talk with them in the headquarters. I went to the office 2 times to clarify this situation, and
But these issues are handled by the SSC Budapest. So if you have anything, just drop a line to us, and we will advise you what to do, how to do, what to submit, and then we guide you through all of this process. But I wrote, and then I will contact you independently after this meeting.
Kind.
Una fábrica es beneficiaria de un proyecto. Pero podemos convertirla en beneficiaria.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. I think, are there any other questions? Oh, there's a question from Clarissa who says, is there an official definition for the term full-time student?
An official definition. That's a very good question. Usually, I think even in the, the student has to be attending a school to graduate, right? And to graduate, to finish the education, you need to attend certain amount, full-time amount. But again, I think that falls in administrative policy. But I guess if it's the distinction between full-time versus part-time, I think it's very clear in case of like a tertiary education, part-time university attendance. Definitely that's not part of the scheme. You have to be attending to earn the degree. So that for that, you need to attend certain minimum, I guess, number of classes, even an elementary or secondary level education. So I cannot really provide you any official definition, but I guess that's how it's understood. Does it answer your question?
I don't know if Georgia has go ahead.
Yeah, so for the post-secondary studies, when your child is in a university or higher education, it's easier to establish, because then the child has to attend minimum 12 classes, minimum for 12 credits per semester. So that's what considered as a full-time attendance. If the credits are less, then it's nothing. If in the secondary school or the primary school, then it's pretty straightforward. The children are in full-time attendance, even if they are not in a full-time attendance because of due to sport or whatever, they are private students or what still can be considered, or an online student because of the circumstance. So it's still considered as full-time attendance. But on that level, you can't have I never heard about a part-time student to be in a secondary school, honestly. So it's just for the post-secondary studies, but it's 12 credit per semester. That's the minimum requirement to be considered as a full-time student.
And just to butt in here again,
yeah,
I'm sorry, but the special education grant is what we were told. And I think this actually is in the FAO Administrative Manual, KK, according to our organization, is that to get the special education grant, you must, the child or the individual, doesn't have to be a child, must be in full-time education in an institution for 40 hours a week. Otherwise, they'll pay zero. And so this is maybe what Ms. Kiss and I can discuss offline. But basically, this is written in our administrative manual. Thanks.
Yeah, it says, but again, I said that if the reason not to be, the reason behind of the part-time attendance is because of the disability, then it's reimbursable, because then the person who is recognized as a disabled person will be able to attend only partially the university. But it's important, or the educational institution, but it has to be clear very much that special education grant is applicable only for those expenses to be paid in 100% to those expenses which are in relation to the disability. So if there is, for example, your child is attending a standard secondary school, then that part, which is the standard tuition, will be reimbursed in line with the normal education grant. But if you have additional expenses coming from the disability, extra classes or support or physiotherapy or whatever, which is not reimbursed through the medical reimbursements, then those issues can be reimbursed under the special education grant. At least that's the practice how FAO is processing these claims. So
yeah, absolutely, and that's what has happened. What I'm talking about is post-secondary. But anyway, let's talk offline.
Let's talk. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Clarissa, please go ahead. Your hand is up.
Hi, thank you so much. This is incredibly helpful because I'm a new staff member. I do wonder, so for a full-time student in Italy, most schools don't have the afternoon every day. So that is extra. They call it the dopo scuola, and they do homework, they do other things. Are those hours eligible for reimbursement under the education grant? Thank you.
Used to be considered maybe by some organizations, but currently that's kind of like extracurricular programs, even if it's offered by the same school where the child is attending full-time. Let's say Wednesday morning is a regular school hours, and the Wednesday afternoon they don't have any formal classes, so students or the parents need to decide how to where to keep the students if it's not formally considered as the classroom hours. Then that's extracurricular activities. These are no longer considered as admissible. Only the tuition fees and enrollment related. So that's the answer. Unfortunately, it's changed. The current scheme doesn't consider extracurricular or outside of the school hours, anything that the parents need, but it's not part of education grant scheme.
On the other hand, I have to confess that in FAO, in practical side, what we do in practice, if this education is part of the curriculum, in the sense that your child may opt either to play music, any type of instrument, or having artistic classes with the painting, and but both of them, it's an optional course in the sense that it's part of the curriculum, but your child has the option to select from 3 options which of the 3 is going with. Then it is reimbursed if it's part of the standard curriculum. But how it was said, if it's outside of the curriculum, it's not reimbursed at all. So afternoon activities, playing football and having horse riding or whatever activities, it's not part of the curriculum, then it's not reimbursable.
Yeah, so I might add, as some of you might have heard, the Commission, International Civil Service Commission, is conducting the new comprehensive review of the compensation package. And we hear from organizations, even though I keep saying tuition and enrollment related fees. And this second part, enrollment related fees. I guess Commission didn't want to go into details because that could be very different from school to another, even within the same country, same duty stations. So it's basically what initially thought was like exams or let's say the registration fees that you need to pay at the beginning, or even each year. Schools might list different fees, not only tuitions, but the registration, administration fees. These are necessary to enroll a child. So these are enrollment-related fees Commission had in their mind. However, it is very difficult to interpret for the person who need to actually administer this, right? So this might be something that needs to be discussed further. And as I heard from Georgie now, FAO has its own way to handle some optional things. Is it part of the standard course and the student have options, or is it totally considered to be outside? So hopefully we will be discussing such matters in the current or the new comp review.
Thank you very much, Kumiko. So I think I don't see any more questions in the chat. So I think we can move on to repatriation grant.
Okay. So I only have one slide. Oh, it's not moving, is it? Let's see. Okay, so I have the front, the title page, but it's just summarized here. This was changed in the previous comp review, which ended 2015. And the rationale of this grant, repatriation grant, was changed a little bit. And now we call it's a earned service benefit payable to expatriate staff who would leave the country of the last duty station. So it was slightly different before, and because it's an earned service benefit now, it's applicable when staff members who are separating have served at least 5 years of expatriate service continuously away from the home country. So I emphasize this because if the staff member was serving in a foreign country, not her own home country, and goes back to a home country, and then you lose the service year. So let's say you are serving 10 years away from your home and go back to your home country duty station, let's say 1 year. Then the organization would deduct the number of years you are spending in home country for the calculation. And when you separate from the organizations at the end of your service, the organization will calculate what's the cumulative amount you earned serving away from your home country. And so the number of years you served away from your home country really matters in terms of the amount of grant you receive, and also whether you have any family member, whether you are single versus you have a spouse, partners, or children. That would determine the amount. And in terms of the updating, how we update the amount, the calculation is based on your net salary amount. So, as you spend more time, of course, your salary is increasing little by little. So, and also you are accumulating the service years if you are away from your home country. So that is updated cumulatively. Automatically, right? And to receive this grant, because it's expatriate benefit, when you leave the last duty station upon separation, you need to provide the proof that you relocated, you moved away from the country of the last duty station. So, for example, in my case, I'm in New York, and I have been here certain amount of years, right? 20 years. And then when I separate, I need to establish that I left the US. I have the home base now outside of the US, and I need to produce the proof of relocation to the organization in order to receive this amount, this grant. So I'll just show you the calculation. So you can see the years of continuous service away from home country, right? So in my case, I have 20 years already, just New York, including Geneva and Beirut, I have more. So I'm already on the last bracket, right? And with a spouse, I get 28 weeks of the gross salary minus staff assessment. And if I had gone and served in Japan, out of all these years, I might have lost some years and moved back to other brackets. And then I would receive maybe 24, 22, 20 weeks of my gross salary minus staff. And this is available to general service as well, not only professional. So you see the numbers depending on the situation. So that's all about the repatriation grant. If you have any questions.
Yes. Can we start with Orient? She's had her hand up. I don't know if Orient is male or female. Please ask your question. Thank you, Orient. Go ahead.
Yeah, I am female. Actually, apologies because it was on the previous session on education.
Okay.
And I was blocked in another meeting, so I don't know if the point has been touched, so please do not hesitate to tell me. My question is the following. I saw that in the manual, normally it's planned that the education grant starts when the child is about 5 years old, or lower if there is a legal reason for that. I am a French citizen, and France has passed in 2019 a new law that is let's say called School for All, and where it is requested that child start school at 3 years old. So far as I understood it, it's as much child that are within the French territory or French child that are outside French territory. That maybe I would need a written comment from a parliamentary on that point. And so I was wondering, I've raised the question once to FAO, and they were mentioning that no, in that case, education grant does not apply. But I wanted also to have your opinion on that, given this legal framework. Then, yeah, it's just child shall attend school, but regardless of what type of school, for instance, there is no mention of that in the law as I read it.
Okay. Actually, this is a very good question. I didn't mention that when I introduced eligibility. So usually, as you are aware, start from age 5. And if the local law requires the child to start formal education earlier, the organization might grant the eligibility exception to a lower age. However, as you mentioned, you are a French citizen, but the rule that came into effect 2019, we are aware of that, they reduced the starting age to 3, but is it applicable to a child living outside of France as long as the parents are French? Or is it the law applicable to children residing within French territory? So that part is not very clear. And actually, organizations in Paris, the UNESCO and other organizations raised this issue, and we are trying to solve if it's applicable only locally. And of course, if you, I don't know, I guess you are in Rome, I'm assuming, but then it's not applicable.
Okay.
So yeah. So yeah, we are trying to clarify, and this is another issue that needs to be clarified. And some of you might have heard that in Geneva, they require from age 4, the formal education needs to start from age 4. And even if you are not Swiss national, if you are residing in Geneva, for example, then you would qualify the exceptional eligibility starting from age 4. So that's the situation right now. Did I answer your question, Orient?
Yeah, thank you. So I understand that from a local perspective in Rome, it's not feasible. That currently you are investigating whether it applies locally in France, also for foreigners' child. Okay, I thank you.
That was actually Aurélie. I'm sorry. So Aurélie, I hope that's fine. Orient, please go ahead. Your hand is up.
Thanks so much. And I'd like to echo Alan's gratitude for the session. It's really interesting. I just want to confirm a detail about the repatriation grant. I've served in 3 duty stations, all of them outside my home country. But when I retire next year, I'll be settling in a country that isn't my official home country. And so are you still eligible for the repatriation grant, or do you only get it if you prove you're going back to the home country that you were hired from? I hope that's clear. Thank you.
Yes, actually, as long as you leave the country of your last duty station, it's applicable.
Great.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
And then we have some questions in the chat. Can I just go back? There's one about what is the age limit of a dependent child at the time of relocation? Ida is the one who's asking that.
Okay. Dependent child is 18, but if the child is attending the full-time university program, 21. So when the definition of dependency is up to either 18 or 21.
Thank you. And then there is from Bunny, could you please explain the table again for a P staff with no dependents? Maybe if you go back to the table, what do the numbers mean?
Okay, so let's say you P plus, right? P staff. And on the left side, let's say you served 8 years continuously away from home, and then you are going to separate and leave the duty station of your last, the country of your last duty station, right? So 8 years, and if you are the professional staff with a dependent child or the spouse, in this case, spouse doesn't need to be dependent. Even if your spouse is not dependent, as long as you have a spouse to leave the country of your duty station,
I'm independent. I'm asking about independency, like no spouse, no nothing, because always we're talking about people that are married and people that have children. And I'm just curious, 8 years is perfect. So the number 11, what does the 11 mean?
11 weeks of your gross salary, less staff assessment.
And that's how much I would get.
That's the grant amount.
Okay, so 11 weeks of my last salary or my
Yes.
net salary? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. And so then if I were married, for those people that have dependents, it would be 20 weeks. That's what
Correct.
the numbers mean. Thank you
That's
so
correct.
much. Thank
Sure.
you so very much.
Sure.
That's perfect. Then Alan, you've had your hand up, so can we go Alan? And then Demiranville, please ask your questions.
Okay. Okay, thank you, colleagues. Here I am again, taking the floor, and I'm sorry about this, but actually, FAO, AP-in-FAO asked me to, excuse me, to actually speak this into the chat. So I'm going to do that, and it relates to the retirement, and it's quite ironic to some degree to what was the question that was just asked by my colleague here about, you know, okay, I'm by myself, I finished my job, how many weeks, do I get, right? And here's the rub, if you don't mind my English language, and I'm going to slow down here because I'm an English language native, so let me speak slower, okay? So here's the background, and this is very relevant to what we're talking about. At the last retirement seminar in November last year, there was a PowerPoint, and it indicated from headquarters that boarding passes would no longer be sufficient to release from headquarters our repatriation grant. Now, the repatriation grant, yes, as the colleague just mentioned, is usually about retirement. I'll get to that in a minute, because it can be more than that. However, since the administrative manual section on this requires for notification about the destination countries where you're going, which is what we just heard from KK and others, what it means is they want to know, and this is the manual now says, where are you going? We want to know from you, from your country, wherever you are, immigration letter, a police letter, or a letter from the tax authorities that state that you have resettled in your new residence away from the duty station. So I followed this up through ServiceNow, and they checked with HR, who I think are on the call. And the response I received from them was that boarding passes are no longer enough for auditing purposes. So you can't just retire and, in my case, move back to Canada and send them your boarding passes. Oh, no, 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 they said. The rules are becoming even more restrictive now, and that HQ is now drafting even more restrictive than that. And remember what I just said. They want a letter from the immigration department. Why would the immigration department send you a letter, or send FAO a letter? You're a national of their country. Why would the police do it? Why would the tax authorities do it? In my country, Canada, they'd laugh at something like that. We're not going to send a letter to your former organization. Of course not. Anyway, now let me get to my question. Why can't I just send the boarding passes when I retire and my family moves back to my country, and copies of a lease or a tenancy agreement where we're renting, my new driving license, my new healthcare card? In Canada, we have universal healthcare, right? And at the end of the day, let's be honest, this repatriation grant is actually severance pay, right? I've worked 22 years here. So they owe me severance pay. And here's the real, what we call in English, the rub. Here's the real thing that gets to me. And you just said it, my colleague, before. If you're terminated, if you're fired by FAO against your will, right? You still get a similar pay right away, like we just heard. You get it wherever you are, wherever you go. You can stay wherever you are. You'll still get the same amount of money. If you work there for 20 years, they'll give you 20 years, 20, whatever it is, 28 weeks or whatever. You'll get it anyway. So why are they making this tougher for us to move, to get this when we retire? And we think we know. We think we know why. The union thinks we know why. Because many people who work at headquarters, which makes up about half of us, not me, I live in Bangkok, but half of the people in Italy, they're gonna stay in Tuscany, right? They're not gonna move back to France or back to Romania or wherever they're from. They're gonna stay there. And so the idea is to make it tougher, to give them the money. And it's a big amount of money. So let me stop there. And I'm sorry for taking so long, but I hope I slowed down enough and I hope this made sense. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. I think this also relates to a question in the chat. So that when you answer the question, both Kumiko and Giorgio, there's two questions. How much time do we have to present evidence of relocation away from the duty station? And regarding repatriation, what proof do I have to provide?
Okay, so I would like to respond to Alan's comment. And he is right. Actually, I never had a situation that I got the grant yet, so I don't know. Boarding pass is no longer enough. That's because, as I clarified, as long as you leave the country of your last duty station, you qualify, right? So if I'm here and in New York, and I'm going back to, let's say, not going back to Japan, I go to France, for example, then is it a trip, vacation? So the boarding pass is not necessarily saying that I left the US. I need to show I left for France to live. I'm not coming back to live in New York, US anymore. And that's why the proof of relocation is necessary. However, what I wasn't sure is that official letter to my organization is necessary from any authority, police or immigration department or tax authority. The official letter to my organization, that part, I don't know. You need to provide a proof. Maybe I should show the driver's license. I'm going to live in France. I'm going to start driving in France. I have the address to live, so I have the driver's license as well. That's a proof that I'm going to live there, for example, as far as my organization is concerned. So the French authority does not need to produce a letter to my organization, I don't think. Maybe Giorgio could clarify better than I could in that sense. So I stop here.
Yeah, okay, I can go to these details because you are talking about retirement, but it's not all the case when it's retirement. If a staff member leaves the UN system after 12 years and then starts to work on another area, then in that case, the repatriation grant is also payable. And now with this new world, when you can work anywhere, it doesn't clear that you are going back to your home station. Because in many cases, you are going to another country to take up other duties. So how it was said, the most important that you are proving an evidence that you left the duty station. This is for the boarding pass and the shipping arrangement of your belongings. And then we know that there are countries where it's not so straightforward. And then there is no residence certificate or something like this. But then in those cases, either you have to be able to provide, as we had a discussion just recently with CSH on this topic, because it comes up in our practical life day by day. So either you can have an lease agreement, which is a long-term lease agreement, which shows that you are living there, or some document that you have a property in that country and you are paying the utility bills and all of the things. So which shows the evidence that you established yourself outside of your last duty station. And then, or it can be also a bank statement that you have a bank account in that country, because then it also requires some evidence that you are in that country, or social service bills or car insurance or whatever. So from what we can see that you left the country and you are living in a new place of the world. It doesn't have to be your home country. specifically. It can be something else outside of your last duty station. And then someone was asking that how far it can be claimed. Anything can be claimed up to 2 years. So if you don't provide evidences that you left the country, then after 2 years, you don't have the right. So please remember to submit these documents within 2 years period of your separation date.
Georgie, just allow me to butt back in.
Yeah.
Once again, please, colleagues, please let, I'm sorry, it's late at night here, but please let me just jump back in. What Georgie said is, it's very, very interesting. This is a move away from what this kind of ridiculous thing about asking the immigration. Well, why would the immigration ever send a letter? Why would the police ever send a letter if we're nationals of that country? This is nuts, right? It's crazy. So what Georgie is saying makes a lot of sense. So that's great. Just this thing about 2 years, Georgie, you know, the whole idea, let's not kid ourselves. This is a severance pay. We've been working for 20 or 10 or 12 years or whatever. We need the money now, not 2 years from now. So we provide you evidence, boarding passes, shipment, whatever, new driving license. We need the money within a few months because we're taking on huge new expenses in countries we haven't lived in for years and years. So that's kind of the bottom line to this thing about retirement. But let me stop there. But what you say sounds good.
No, actually, just let me reinforce. If you submit the documents, then we are paying. You have the time limit for 2 years to submit these documents. I'm not saying that we're not paying. If we have the evidences, then we are paying immediately. So we are releasing the payment then. We are not sitting on that. The 2 years limit is just for the submission from your side.
Thank you very much. Okay. Bonnie had a question in the chat where she says that she actually retires in 8 years and 11 months. So does the calculation, is it only for 8 years or there is compensation for the additional 11 months? That's to Kumiko. But Bonnie also has her hand up again. So if you have an additional question, Bonnie, please go ahead. And then after Bonnie, Tony, and then after Tony, Demaranville.
Yeah, yes, thank you. I'll try to make this quick. It sort of just builds upon our colleagues in Bangkok's intervention, is that I am an American citizen. I already have a driver's license and I have a bank account. I have those things because UNFCU is in the United States. And I keep my driver's license because we have to have, I'm not a legal resident of Italy. I could get an Italian driver's license and get residency, but then I'm not allowed the repatriation grant. So I keep my US driver's license. I mean, I could give these to you now, but the idea is it's gonna, I mean, I know we have up to 2 years, but someone who hasn't lived in their home country for many, many years have to reestablish. Some of us don't even know where we're going. And so we go to our closest relative, but we might stay with them for a while. We might take time to figure out where we're going to go. And so I don't know. I just find this I understand that you don't want us to go on vacation and come back and live in Tuscany. That's fine. I don't want to do that anyway. But I don't know this whole what is the proof sort of thing. And will it change in 8 years and in the 2 years that I have left? 2 years and 1 month, actually. I'm just curious how this is, because I do agree that this is more of a severance pay, but I also see the point of from the Italian government side that they don't want us all just, you know, clumping in one area. So I don't know, maybe a bit more clarification would be helpful, but if not, I guess we wait and see, and I'll try to come up with something. Because not all of us are, as someone who is single, my only sibling is presently 82 years old and may not be alive in 2 years, as she's not in great health. And no dependents. It's sort of odd to try to have to come up with all of this within 2 years, and I don't know. That's all I have to say. I don't want to take up any more time, but I am more really interested in those 11 months because unfortunately I arrived on January 8th And my birthday is on December 25th, so 26th. So, you know, I'm like literally 2 weeks from that 9-year mark. Thank you.
Kumiko, what happens with the 11 months?
Yeah.
11 months. And then we'll have Tony Demaranville. Please let me know how I say that. And then Akiko. So Kumiko, please go ahead.
Yes, I'm just trying to think if there was any discussion about prorating. I know, as you know, the pension, they prorate, right? They calculate the percentage even to the month. But for this grant, I am not aware. I mean, organizations might do it. Again, it's the main policy. I don't know. I mean, you're so close to next mark, 9 years, and right. So it seems fair to prorate or at least make it to 9. But yes, it's better to hear from Georgie on this one.
Could you repeat, because I was lost in the chat box to see, because I am receiving other ones and then my attention was not 100% there.
Yeah. So typically commission members don't go into cases, right? And so I hear what she was saying, Bonnie was saying, you are so close to make it to 9 years continued service of 9 years. And if she separates at 8 years and 11 months,
then
how
we prorate. We consider the 11 months as well. So we will check that between 8 years and 9 years, what is the difference between the two. So if there is 1 week difference or 2 week difference between the two payments, and then we are calculating which is eligible for the 11 month.
It's exactly period. 2 weeks difference.
Then you will receive, in addition, on the top of the 8 weeks, then you are receiving the 2 weeks / 11. So we prorate for the 11 months, the 2 weeks period. So 2 weeks period would be considered if you have a complete in an entire year. So additional 12 months, but you have only 11. So we are calculating the 11/12 of the 2 weeks, and it is added up to your service period.
That's good news. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear that too.
Yeah, but I know, because we are struggling with I developed some Excel spreadsheet for the colleagues that they just can write, and then for the estimations just to calculate these amounts. So that's why I noted it.
So
it is written there.
So there's actually a question in the chat from Roland. Do you have a calculator to calculate the grant?
Yeah, I developed an Excel spreadsheet, but when we go to so it's just a rough estimation, because we are not able to calculate the correct grant at the time of the separation, because there might be changes. But then it goes to because it's a summary of the terminal emoluments calculation, so it includes also the leave days and all of the stuff, and then the leave days can be different. So when we want to see the exact amount, then we are asking payroll to run 100 in a dummy separation type of action to see the exact amount. So, but it requires time, so it's easier to go with our Excel spreadsheet calculation. So yes, we use a calculator to the grant.
Great. Okay. Before Tony, I'm going to ask you to. There's one question from Adam. Does time back in the home country during COVID with FAO approval / recommendation get deducted from the years of service for the purposes of the repatriation grant?
If I may say, there was no such a discussion so far, but I would say no, because we are considering the duty station, and your duty station didn't change during this period. It's the same if you are on leave without pay, then those periods are deducted depending on the length of the leave without pay period. But if you are on a leave and you just leave your duty station, it's not deducted from the repatriation grant calculation. In case there is no change in your duty station, then there is no change in the repatriation grant. We consider that you were at the duty station.
Thank you. Tony, please go ahead. You've been very...
Yes, just a very quick question. I am presently in a duty station, and I was asked to go for another duty station, a non-family duty station. So how to handle or to deal with this issue when it comes to separation? Especially that the family will remain at the current duty station, which is not a home station. It is my previous working station, while I will be going to a non-family duty station. And I believe that if I will spend a year there, I will be going on separation by that time. Over to you.
Then I can say that in case the organization move your family to your last duty station, then we will move your family back to the location you are going after your separation. So if you are going back to your home station, then yes, your family will be eligible to return to your home station on the cost of the organization. Because they didn't travel with you to the non-family duty station, it doesn't mean that you lost the entitlement to move back them to your home station.
Okay, thank you.
Demaranville, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. So I think I understood this already, but just to be sure. So I already qualify for the repatriation grant, but my NTE is not until 2048. So if I decide at some point before then to leave FAO of my own volition and go back to my home country, am I still eligible for the repatriation grant? And is that also the same if I move to another country to take up another job, even within the UN system? And then I had one other question, which actually relates back to the education grant. So say my children decided to go to university in the US, which is where I'm from. If I later move to the US while they're in university, I think I would not be eligible anymore for the education grant. But if their father was also working for FAO as an officer, would there still be eligibility, I guess, for the education grant, even if I was living in my home country with the children, but he was based in Rome? Thank you. Sorry, I know that was a lot all at once.
Yeah, and I think this question also relates to a question in the chat, Kumiko, which says, how is the separation grant related to retirement?
Okay, separation grant, I think it includes termination, death grant, and repatriation grant. So no matter what reason you are separating from the organization, you will qualify for repatriation grant, whether it's retirement or even though you are not at the retirement age, you are leaving the organization to take up on a job outside of the common system, you will qualify, you will get the repatriation grant given that you meet the eligibility, right? You served more than 5 years, for example, and you are going, leaving where you have been working, the country where you have been working. So that's one thing. And in terms of the education grant, depending on who is claiming the education grant, when both spouses are common system staff members, usually the person who has the higher level claims the education grant, right? And then if it happens to be your spouse who is not a US citizen and you are going back to US and you are not claiming the education grant for your child, but if your spouse is claiming the education grant, the person, your spouse is, as long as the spouse is not in his own, her own country, they can claim the education grant for the child studying away, right? So that's how it works.
Provided that they are the dependent of that stuff. So then the dependency changes too.
Yeah.
Thank you. There's a question in the chat before we go to Akiko that says double nationality can apply for repatriation grant. If I decide to live with my family after retirement in the country with my second nationality?
It depends on what is the nationality. I'm just asking. So because if you have your duty station is New York and your first nationality is Egypt and the second nationality is US because you obtained somehow, and then you are hired as a US national and you are working in New York, then there is nothing. If you decide to move to Egypt, the organization considers the nationality upon appointment. So what is in the system is first nationality. So these entitlements are going with the first nationality recognized by the organization upon appointment. But it doesn't mean that you don't have the right to move to another. If it differs from the duty station country, the nationality, yes, you can go to another place as well, not just to the national of the country. I don't know whether there is a response or not, but it's case by case. It has to be checked because there are circumstances. But one thing is very sure that upon separation, you don't have the right to change your nationality or PPR or whatever on the last moment just to decide to have some entitlement. So it is considered how it was at the beginning of the contract with the organization.
Thank you. Akiko, and then Ellen again. Could those that have asked questions and don't have other questions, please put your hands down? Because I've still got Tony and I still have Demaranville up. Do you have some other questions or are you done? Akiko, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? I think the problem is usually when you're working, you can ask someone who were in the office before you to learn how to do it. In the case of retirement, you have no one to ask because they are gone. Therefore, you have to organize this kind of discussion. And if I had another meeting, perhaps I wouldn't know, and that's it. Therefore, it would be nice if AP or UNGS or whoever organize a sort of a note as a general message, like in this case, you can do this, like minutes of today. But at the end, you can say, it will be really case by case, please discuss with your personnel or something. Then you can get rid of the responsibility. And for the requirements of the police report, I'm Japanese, and if I ask police that please certify, I will be treated like a criminal. And immigration doesn't want to deal with the domestic people. And the tax office will look at me and say, what do you want? You want to pay more tax? And that's it. Therefore, it's country by country, but human resource people or admin people doesn't know. So there's some need for indicative list, and it shouldn't start from police, because many countries, police will deal with criminal people and then will not provide a service for the general public. Thank you very much for organizing this, and then that's over.
Thank you, Akiko. I think, Georgie, you answered this before, but please reinforce the answer again.
So the general information, I guess it's more or less available, but in case you have any question, I always would suggest all of you to contact staff HR unit.
Yes, but it should be written because we don't know who to contact.
It has to be, you have to raise, now it is the service now request, but if you have doubts, you can send me an email. But normally it should be through service now. You opt for a query, question on separation, and then you will receive a response what you have to do. Because, as I told, when we consider your entitlements and rights and things are depending where you are appointed to, how long were you appointed with the organization, or you are appointed with the organization upon separation, whether you have dependent or not.
Yeah, and then if I don't submit, I understand that if I don't submit anything within 2 years, it will make FAO happy, right? And they will use money for some other
yes,
purpose.
it would make FAO happy, but I have to tell you that this unclaimed repatriation grant causes a lot of headache for us, because audit doesn't let us to know. So we have to provide the explanation, and we have to provide all the evidences why those payments were not done. And then we have to attempt, still colleagues hunting for them, ex-colleagues, what happened, and whether they really repatriated or not, or what. So it causes a lot of problem
my
for
point
us.
is, what you said is service now. But if I retire tomorrow, I wouldn't have access to service now.
You will have access. After the retirement, there is a new feature that you will have access. But then I say, if you don't have access, if you have doubts, just write my name and you can send an email to me.
Okay.
Even though outside of the FAO, if you retire tomorrow or you are separated tomorrow, then just write me an email and I will provide a response to you.
Yeah, well, that would be great. But the problem is, only those who are attending this session would know. Therefore, I think information sharing is important. And
you are right. Who are not here, they will not know about this. It's absolutely valid to have this so legit to say this.
Okay, my turn. And
yes, Alan.
Because it segues exactly what Akiko just said. And it comes back to this whole thing. And okay, look, no, come on. I mean, Georgie, this is no reflection on you, okay? Not at all. Not at all. I've had nothing but really, really good experience with the HR people. Mila, Jay, and everybody else here in Bangkok, and all you guys in Brussels, and you know, in across the whole spectrum of the different places. But exactly what she said. You know, if you forget retirement, if you just quit or you get fired or whatever, you get it right away, right? You know, there's no questions to ask. You get these severance packages right away. And so I think she's exactly right. This needs to be much broader. And this whole thing is up in the air about what's going on with this thing about, okay, first it was just, you know, we're going to ask you need to send a letter from the tax people. You need to send a letter from the police. You need to send a letter from the immigration. And like she said, in her country, in my country, they'd laugh at us. There's no way they're going to send a letter like that to FAO. So what you said, Georgie, before about, okay, so we're looking at making this a bit easier, you know, driving licenses, tenancy agreements. These are all good things. But I think just like, you know, Akiko just said, this needs to be widely shared, because right now in the administrative manual, this is exactly what it says. And so anybody who's retiring within the next few years, or for, you know, or anybody who's you know, thinking of leaving, like I think Adam and some of the other colleagues have said, you know, this is just not clear, and this needs to be clarified really quickly, I think, and in the, I guess, in the sense of what our new administration under the new ADG, or not new ADG, but has done, has said would be, I think, you know, in order. So anyway, sorry, but anyway, I just wanted to, let me just finally say thank you, that I think you guys are really on the right track, and thanks for listening to us, and thanks for taking the time. Over.
It's a pleasure, Alan. That's why AP is running these sessions, because the information was not available. So we chose to take this as something that we could do as a service to staff. And it is on our site. So all of these sessions are recorded and they will be on our site, on the AP site, available to play over and over again as you wish. There's a question from Azeta. Is it possible to request an advance on the repatriation grant, and then at the time of separation, provide proof of settling away from the last duty station, or pay back the grant? I guess this does not exist. correct?
No, it doesn't exist. You can request an advance upon from your terminal emoluments, but only for the leave days, accrued leave days, which should be paid, because the repatriation grant, how it said, it's subject of evidence that you removed from the country where you, from your last duty station country. So until it is not proven, we are not giving you anything from that repatriation grant. So I know, while it is different for general service staff in Rome, because they can have advance against their separation payment scheme, but it's other type. It doesn't require any relocation because they are locally recruited.
Thank you. Tony and Akiko, are your hands up for other questions, or Akiko? Your hand is up.
No, sorry, I can't find the lower hand.
Okay. There was a question from Demaranville about one more question. Are years worked part-time at 80% counted as a year outside the home country, or only as 80%?
I responded, it is calculated 80%. So the part-time period in the repatriation grant calculation, when we are doing, we are considering the entire service period within the UN system, and within the organization. And then we are checking all the parts when you were eventually on leave without pay longer than 30 days, or part-time more than 30 days. And then those periods are deducted and considered in the calculation. So if you have, for example, you have 10 years of service with the organization, from what you spent 4 years on 80% part-time due to any reason, then in the calculation, 6 years is considered to be full for repatriation grant, but the 4 year is just 80%. It's reduced with that amount.
Thank you. Fatima has a hand up. Fatima, are you asking the question that's in the chat so I don't have to read it?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Just to explain that, thank you. If you have dual nationality and during the years of service you buy a property in one of the countries, either in my case I'm French and Lebanese, and I have the if I'm going back to where I have the property, the deeds and all the utility bills will really have they would have started many years before my repatriation. So what new evidence do I have to provide that I have really relocated? Because you said a lease. I'm not going to have a lease. I have a property, but I had bought it when I've been working in FAO. Also, the utilities, they do not stop. Electricity, water, and everything. I pay them on monthly basis. What else do I have to provide? Thank you.
Then do you have a bank statement or anything else over there?
I have a bank statement already. I have a bank account in my country. So what?
That's the questions I am also asking from policy people, because I know from the real life examples, which is very legit, all of your questions, because I know from real life that people having a property here, moving to another country and returning then at the end of the service, not selling their apartment and still keeping their property over there. So what relocation is required? Then the shipment and the boarding pass and something that you move there, or maybe a mobile phone, because then it can be some invoice, because you might not have a mobile phone from that country because you don't use, but if you go there, then you will change some other phone. I don't know. It's still a question again, I'm saying.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I just want to thank Kumiko. She has to leave, unfortunately, for another meeting, and we still have 9 minutes. So, Georgie, you will have to take the hot seat while Kumiko is leaving. I just wanted to say to Kumiko, thank you so much. Thank you to the ICSC. We will be scheduling the other 2 sessions, I think, on the other areas. And we'll let people know when they are. But Kumiko, thank you so much. If you're still there. And then Alan, you've got your hand up again. Is it up? Yeah, go ahead.
I do. I do.
It's fine.
and I'll be quick. But as our colleagues in Budapest might already know, I'm kind of the agent provocateur on an issue regarding something that's called the Tax Equalization Fund. Most colleagues don't know what this is, but we all know that there's a gross amount and a net amount that we get in our paychecks every month, right? And the organization deducts 22% or something like that, which we never see. What most colleagues probably aren't aware of is that that goes into something called the Tax Equalization Fund. And our nationalities, as I said before, in my case, Canadian, my country and your countries, what happens is that goes as to a credit. So that's a lot of money. You know, it's in my case, in 10 years, it's $400,000 or $300,000. That money goes to a tax credit to my country to pay for their FAO dues or their UN dues in their biennial payments. Most people aren't aware of this, but this resonates and it has an impact on your own state pensions in your countries. So whatever country that you're from, your country is getting a discount on what they pay for the to the membership of FAO or whatever other UN agency that you're based in. It's too bad the ICSC just pulled away, understandably, that they're not available. But a lot of people don't understand this. And so I've asked headquarters to give me a full recounting of how much my deductions have been put into this tax fund, which goes to credit my own country. And I've not quite gotten the full answer. They're trying to work on it. And so I appreciate that. But this makes a difference possibly to when you retire and how much state pension you'll get from your country. So just keep this in mind. It's called the Tax Equalization Fund. You can send it through ServiceNow and say how much of my paycheck has been sent into the Tax Equalization Fund, and it's called the sub. I think it's called the sub folder or contract of whatever your name of your country is, and that's where it goes into, and that's when your country dips into it and takes it out. So you are being taxed. You think you're not being taxed, but you are. So there you go. Thanks.
I learned something new. I did not know that.
Me too.
So we are taxed. Oh, wow. Okay, Roswitha.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And we don't realize that. And the reason it's done, I think, largely was because the United States taxes their people, right? So it was kind of set up to kind of equalization, everything. But what happened was eventually in 1957 or something like that, what happened was every other country said, well, okay, well, hang on. If my people are putting their money into this, we can use that, right? And the answer was yes, you can, and you can reduce your yearly, or I think it's biennial fees to the UN by how many people you have in your country that are paying into this, how many nationalities. So yeah, a lot of people don't know it, and guess what? It's hard to find. But if you look into the Committee on Finance, or whatever it's called, we all had to learn about the basic text, right? You'll find it. So that's it. Thank you, and good night from Bangkok.
Thank you so much, Alan.
I learned for the first time how they are using it. I knew the presence, but
yeah,
that's really a good. Roswitha, please go ahead. I think you're the last question, actually.
No, I have
to wrap up now.
I have a comment very briefly, because I have the same problem. I have property in a country, I have a bank account, etc. So maybe a different contract would be a solution, but in my country, and maybe also in some other countries, you can get the notification of main residence from your municipality where you have your property or you settle down. So that might be also an option to prove, just as additional comments. Thank you.
You are right. That can be considered also, yeah.
Thank you very much. There's a question here. If you work 20 years for FAO and then 2 for another UN agency and then retire to your home country, do you still get the grant? And is it based on the total years of UN service?
So that's what I say, that then since you get the maximum of years, there is no real risk that you don't get. But if the service is continuous, then it is considered as well. So it's added up. So for example, if you have 2 years with IFAD and then you move to FAO for an additional 4 years. Then in total it's 6 years, and then it's considered as 6 years. But it means that the service is not interrupted. It's you are arriving with an interagency transfer or something, and the repatriation grant part there was not paid over there, so it's accruing. But with the 20 years with the organization, then you reach the maximum payable amount. So yes, it is considered in that sense, but in that sense there is no point to worry about whether is it considered or not.
I think we have exhausted all the questions. I'm just going through to
and
see
exhausted me
and exhausted you. I am sorry, but it's really important. We really appreciate that HR is here because we would not have had the answers we needed. And I think the most important thing from this is the message that you can take back, Georgie, is that HR needs to have more sessions like this. For the whole of the professionals and everybody, because clearly the manual is still being updated and things are still going on and people have these questions. So we are only covering our constituents who are members of AP-in-FAO, but we're not covering the whole off-FAO. And we're trying to get national professional officers to be recognized as members. So I'm sure in other duty stations there are these questions which would really benefit everybody. So I just really want to thank you. Georgie, you have been amazing. You have answered all the questions. Kumiko, ICSC, thank you so much. To everybody who attended, who asked questions, who participated, thank you so much. We will be sending the video recording and the PowerPoint will be shared. So you will have access to all this information and it will be on our intranet site. So good afternoon or good evening and have a great evening. And those in the morning, have a great working day. And those going to sleep, good night.
And they will, thanks a lot. And I will return to TRELIB on dependency with the disability support, and on special education grant related questions and equalization. I just wrote this. And Christiansen, either Christiansen when single parent alone stops. That's what my notes. And then the afternoon activities should not be reimbursed. I wrote this one if it's not in the curriculum. It's just for myself. So that's just to wrap it up that I will come back to you. And in any of you have any questions, just drop a line to my email and I will go back to you with the response.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
That's
everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Wadzi.